We'll call to order this MPO Policy Committee meeting on September 10th, 2021 with introductions. Lisa Ridge, MPO Chairman, and with Monroe County. So
Sarah Ryderband, Vice Chair and Chair of the CAC.
Steve?
Oh, is it my turn? Steve
I'm
Wolin,
just
member
going
of
to
the
call
city.
you out so people don't talk over each other.
All right, it's fine. Member of the city council.
Kate, as you just took a drink.
Sorry. Kate Waltz, member of County Council.
Penny?
Penny Giffens, Monroe County Commissioner.
Ken?
Kent McDaniel here for representing Bloomington Transit.
Margaret?
Margaret Clements, I'm president of the County Plan Commission.
Jason?
Jason Bannock, Indiana University.
Nate?
Hi, everybody. Nate Nichols, City of Bloomington Public Works Department.
Andrew?
Andrew Seabour, serving as the Mayor Hamilton's proxy today.
And then we have our great staff of Brian Clemens and Patrick Martin.
Staff.
Didn't I say staff?
You said, well, you had an adjective, but yeah.
Okay, staff.
Staff.
Item 2 is approval of the agenda.
Move to approve.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. Do we have any comments from the board? Seeing none, do we have any comments from the public? And I'm not seeing anything there. Do you want to call a roll, Ryan?
Sure. Giffens,
Yes.
Clements,
Yes.
Nickel,
Yes.
Tholen,
Yes.
Ryderband,
Yes.
Seabour,
Yes.
Bannock,
Yes.
McDaniel,
Yes.
Wiltz,
Yes.
Ridge.
Yes.
That is 10-0.
Item 3 is approval of the minutes from July 9th, 2021.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and we have a second. Do we have any comments from the board?
I would ask if we ever got clarification whether an individual needed to have been present in order to vote on approval of minutes.
Yes.
We asked that at that meeting, so I'm wondering whether we got clarification.
I did talk to Patrick this morning. Patrick reached out to the legal department of the city of Bloomington, and a person can vote yes if they were absent at a meeting due to it being recorded. Minutes are available online, so they have that capability to go read them prior to the meeting. Is that correct, Patrick?
Correct. And usually abstaining from voting is a courtesy, but that courtesy is not mandatory. The fact that the minutes are available in a audiovisual form through CATS means that everybody can review the previous meeting. In fact, that's how the staff develops the minutes, is we go through and listen to the whole meeting all over again.
Thank you. And thanks for checking into that, Patrick.
Sure.
Any other comments from the board? Comments from the public? Seeing none. Ryan, would you want to call the roll?
Sure. Clements,
Yes.
Nickel,
Yes.
Tholen,
Yes.
Ryderband,
Yes.
Seabour,
Yes.
Bannock,
Yes.
McDaniel,
Yes.
Wiltz,
Yes.
Ridge,
Yes.
Kinsey,
Yes.
Giffens.
Yes.
That is 11-0.
Thank you. Moving on to item 4, communications from the chair. I don't have any unless anyone from the board has anything to say. Sarah is vice chair.
No, not at the moment.
Okay. Item 5, reports from officers and/or committees. Citizens Advisory Committee.
The CAC met. We have recommended approval of the tip as written, with the 2026 being indeed an illustrative year, and recommended approval of all of the tip amendments that will be before us today.
Thank you, Sarah. Technical Advisory Committee, I believe that's going to be Patrick.
Yes, Lou May apologizes. He's on vacation since his time is unfortunately short. And then Paul Satterley is also on vacation too this week. So I volunteered to do that. And my report is identical to Sarah's. In the Technical Advisory Committee met on its assigned date. They recommended Policy Committee approval of the draft fiscal year 2022-2026 Transportation Improvement Program. They also recommended adoption of the amendments to the fiscal year 2022-2024 Transportation Improvement Program, both of which are on the agenda for today's meeting here.
Thank you, Patrick. Reports from the MPO staff, Electronics Meeting Policy Resolution 21-01.
And I wanted to report one correction. Penny caught a typo on the second line of that resolution, and I corrected that. How we didn't catch this last month, I don't know. But we corrected the typo and reformatted it into the page here. And then I wanted to reiterate again, this policy doesn't take an effect until the governor decides not to renew his emergency order, the health emergency order for COVID-19. We still have that for the balance of September. And the way the numbers are looking, it could very well be into October. So just to let you know, and we will send out an email to all of the committee members, no matter which committee you're on, advising them of the policy being in effect once the governor decides not to renew his emergency order. I'll be happy to answer any questions anybody may have.
Thank you, Patrick. Any questions, comments from the board? Seeing none. Moving on to old business. Item A is the Bloomington Monroe County MPO fiscal year 2022 to 2026 Transportation Improvement Program final draft.
Okay, the first thing I did here was I put together well, this was as of last Friday at 4:45. This is the list of all of the changes that we've made to the document since you last saw it. And since it was seen by the Technical Advisory Committee and Citizens Advisory Committee, we received one public comment, which is documented at the very end of the entire 111-page document. One public comment, and then we also received review comments from the Federal Transit Administration, Region 5, and also Federal Highway Administration, Indiana Division, and finally from the Indiana Department of Transportation Technical Services Division. What I did here was I identified what page they were and the modifications that we made to those. These are, again, these are the comments as of last Friday. And then we also received comments from Lou May. I individually called every one of the LPAs, and Lou May gave me a change, a modification, which appears correctly in the tables that you're going to have here in a little bit. I made one change for him. Rural transit, everything was fine. Monroe County, I made changes through consultation with Lisa this morning. Those are in the document that you have before you today. And then I also have additional changes that were recommended by Andrew Seabour for the city of Bloomington. I didn't get all of those made in time for the meeting, but they will be made immediately after the meeting. So this is the sum here. And again, at the very end of the document, there's a summation of public comments, much more detailed response, questions or comments by the individuals reviewing the document, and also detailed staff responses to each one of those questions.
Thank you, Patrick. I guess I just have one question. I know you said you had gone through and made some changes, either through myself, through communications. I know any of my changes didn't change any dollar amount outcomes for what's programmed in the MPO.
Correct, with the exception of the local dollar match you had for
Exactly.
Sunrise Reading Courts.
Yeah, nothing that affected any of the federal funded dollars.
No,
Okay.
no. But I added in, I bumped that one number up to 1.4 million for right of way. So that's reflected not only in the individual project, but it's also reflected in the summary table, which precedes all of the individual projects. So the summary tables that you'll see here today are correct based on the information that we have right now, which we've triple checked through reviewing not only the applications again and again, but also calling everybody, sending this information to everyone and asking them to verify 100% accuracy. Now, of course, there could always be a Scrivener error out there somewhere, but as far as we know, the programming numbers are all 100% correct.
And those didn't really change from what we've seen. I don't want to present something to a board, and myself included, to vote on something that there were changes made, even by our communications. This morning, I want to make sure that
we would never do that.
Okay.
Yeah, no, nothing's changed. I mean, the first thing we looked at is individual project, the amounts by funding category, the fiscal year that they were assigned to, whether they were what I would call the available program years of 22, 23, 24, 25, or whether they were illustrative. We verified all of those, and then we built them into a summary table. Federal Transit Administration, Federal Highway Administration wanted to see detailed summary tables, which showed summary funding by funding category. FTA was the toughest to assemble because we had to build those from scratch. But it shows a compendium of everything, and no dollar changes have changed. Well, I take that back. There was one minor modification, I think, in the city of Bloomington where they had, we made that in the previous document, where they wanted to reduce the amount of money so that way it balanced out for Monroe County. I think that was in fiscal year 23 or 24. And that was HSIP money. And that was done in the previous document, not this document at all.
Okay.
So no, the answer is no changes whatsoever.
Thank you.
Oh, and then I go on with the rest. Sorry. Ryan, could you scroll, since I don't have control of the airplane there? The document's now up to 111 pages due to the comments added in. If you'll scroll to the summary table, well, go to the first table where I review. Yeah, keep going. Oh, back up. Just look. There you go. This has not changed at all. This is the program revenue levels, which were prescribed to us. We couldn't alter these whatsoever. These were prescribed to us by the Indiana Department of Transportation the first week of March. These are the same numbers, the same table, which we put out in the call for projects on March 15th. And LPAs, all the available local public agencies who were qualified to receive federal funding, were asked to respond by April 30th. And that was a 6-week notice, but actually there was a 7-week notice because we published this in the policy committee packet 1 week prior to the announcement. So there was a tip off there. And then moreover, we also called everyone ahead of time and asked them if 6 weeks was adequate time for them to respond, and everybody responded positively. And then in the final week of response, I again called everybody to ask if they were having any problems, if they needed an extension. Nobody said they needed an extension, so therefore we kept the deadline as it was on April 30th. So these are the numbers that are available to us, a total of $3.7 million in any one given year. We had an extra little bump there. It was what I would call floating money, the Section 164 open container law money. That was $110,000. That was available in 22 or 23. It was requested in 23. And the STP Group 3 that started out as Surface Transportation Block Grant Group 3 money. And then in midstream, NDOT changed that to CARES money, CARES 2021 money. That's why you've got the asterisk there. That started out in 22, but it has to be spent. It can be spent in 22 or 23. It just must be spent by, it says here in the tiny print, September 20th of 2023. Other than that, these are the numbers that we have to work with. You know, I want to add an editorial comment about this is a lot less than we need, but this is what we have available to us. We anticipate additional revenue coming down in the form of the new surface transportation bill in Congress, currently in the House and currently in the Senate, U.S. House, U.S. Senate, Conference Committee. We don't know when that will come out. That could be this calendar year, that could be next calendar year. And then on top of that, there will be adjustments to the urbanized area boundary by the Census Bureau. Once the urbanized area boundary is set, which could be as much as 2 years from now, that may increase or shrink the population of the urbanized area. And since our funding is allocated based on a per capita basis, we live and die by the size of our population. Okay, Ryan, if you could scroll to the next page, please. Okay, these are the summary tables for the individual projects that follow, showing who the LPA is, and then the different types of funding that's available, types of funding balancing out by fiscal year. So you can see everything else, everything balances out in program years of fiscal year 2022, 23, 24, and 25. 26, the illustrative year, the year that doesn't count, as I cannot say often enough. We have a deficit shown there, but that's not a problem. That's just an illustrative list of projects and needs that are out there still. Unfunded needs, I guess is what I would call those. If you'd scroll to the next page, please.
Well, before we moved on, I noticed there were a few hands raised.
Oh,
Nate,
I'm
did you have
sorry.
a question?
Yes, Pat, that section 164 penalty that you mentioned, can you refresh my memory on that? I know we talked a while ago, but what exactly is that?
Well, it's called open container law penalty money. It's extremely obscure. I could barely find a definition of it. And when I contacted the Department of Transportation about a definition, I had a lot of hand waving. Essentially, it's what I would call open container penalty law. The state of Indiana has a higher than national average for drunk driving, intoxicated driving. And the federal rules are stiffer than the state rules. The state of Indiana's legislature has elected not to bump up their laws to the federal level. So therefore, Federal Highway Administration, USDOT adds a penalty to the state of Indiana where they take off the top, take surface transportation block grant money off the top, which would normally go to the state. And that money instead will have to go to safety, and then whatever the Department of Transportation doesn't want to use what I would call the residuals. That's a kind word. The residuals, then they divide it up to the MPOs, and ours is based on our per capita population. So that's how we received, what is it, $164,000, I think it was, or 110,000. I'm sorry. Well, yeah, that's how we received it. I mean, the short definition is it's open container law penalty money that must go toward highway safety improvement type projects.
Thanks, Pat.
And Penny, did you have a question?
Yes, do the negative values have to be shown in red on those tables?
No, they don't have to be. We just did that for the Department of Transportation and the Federal Highway Administration. We'll show them in black. Is that black? Yeah, we'll show them in black later on. Yeah, we don't have to show them in red, but I purposely put those in red so that way the committee itself would fully see that what's out there. I want to make sure that everyone understands exactly what we're showing, even though fiscal year 26 is illustrative, it's not a commitment or anything like that. It's just a need, what I would call an unfunded need that are out there.
Pat, the open container law,
Yes.
is that on the basis of our population or our number of drunk drivers?
Population again.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, versus the United States. Yeah. Any other questions that are out there? I'm sorry, I can't see raised hands. Okay, Ryan,
At the moment, yes.
Okay, can you scroll back down? And summary tables. I'm sorry. Is that okay? This is a table constructed specifically at the request of the Federal Transit Administration through a conference call we had with them several weeks ago. They wanted to specifically see the allocations of sectional funds, section 5307, 5310, 5339 funds to Bloomington Transit and to rural transit by fiscal year. And whenever the Transit Administration says they want something, we say, yes, sir, yes, yes, ma'am, and then we built the table. So this is a brand new table, which didn't appear in any previous versions of the document. But it gives you an idea of how much is out there in the way of commitment for the program years of 22 through 25 and also the 11th year.
And Pat, with the section 5339 funding, why does it go, it varies widely, 2.8 million, 4.3 million, 0?
Yeah.
What's going on?
That was what NDOT gave us. Well, they gave, I'm sorry, they give the money marks to Bloomington Transit and Rural Transit, and then Bloomington Transit, Rural Transit supply us with the applications, and all we do is fill it into the table. Now, why? Yeah, I question the same thing. Why does that go to 0 and 24? I don't know. It just 0 for the section 5339. And you might explain what section 5339 is, since you're a more transit person than I am.
I was going to ask you the same.
Okay.
I remember the old numbers, and then they switched them to 4 digits, and I forget what some of them are.
Okay. Well, yeah, 50. Let me start at the bottom here. 5311 is rural transportation.
Right. Formerly 15,
5307 is for use for capital and operating.
Yeah.
5310 is again used for capital and operating. 5339, I believe, is for their BT's access service. What I call handicap service.
The others I'm familiar with, but that's a lot of money for
Well,
Next, we don't need to get into it.
no.
I'll look into it later.
No, I'm sorry, I misspoke. 5339 looks like it's probably discretionary money for the purchase of new buses.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. And
That-
that
yeah,
easily
yeah.
explains
Yeah,
why it's zero.
Because BT is acquiring electric vehicle buses, EV buses, replace the diesel buses. Those buses are $1 million a pop. And then on top of that, you have the charging station installations, which run around $250,000 per bus. So therefore, you do that magic of 2 million plus another 5 million plus a residual, and that will get you to 2.9 million.
Yeah.
Same for fiscal year 23. They'll be buying 3 to 4 new electric vehicle buses. No buses being acquired in fiscal year 24. A single bus being acquired in fiscal year 25.
That makes sense. Thank you, Pat.
Yeah, in fiscal year 26 at $473,000 looks like a diesel bus. And that's probably a handicapped accessible access, BT access vehicle would be my guess. I hope that helps.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Okay, Brian, will you scroll down again, please? Yeah. Okay, this is the summary table for Monroe County, showing all of the different various funding categories. Question that came up this morning is, what's the difference between TAP above, and then down below that, TAP, TE in parentheses, or transportation enhancement. The difference is the Bicentennial Trail Project. The Bicentennial Trail Project was funded in, help me Lisa here, 2009, I believe it was.
Mhm.
Okay, funded in 2009 under an old program. So therefore it's referred to as transportation enhancement. We put the TAP in front of it so that way you could recognize the fact that it's actually the same thing, just older money. And then those are all of the funding categories that we've got there. Then Ryan, if you'd scroll to the next page, please. Okay, this summary table for the city of Bloomington, showing program levels again. These are federal levels, and then down to the bottom lines are showing the total local match. In Monroe County's case and also in Bloomington's case, both entities are grossly overmatching federal dollars for projects, which shows a need that vastly exceeds revenues. Okay, on rural transit, which is the next table, again, we're showing this, we're showing by not only funding source, but we also were requested by Federal Transit Administration, show what specific project is. You can see rural transit, it's all operating assistance, predominantly 5311, 5339, and then the local match and the what I would call the locally generated or locally derived income out of that. And you see what the summary table is for that. And then below that, Ryan, if you'll scroll to that, yeah, here's the Bloomington Transit summary. And again, broken out by, this was requested by FTA, broken out by sectional funding category. Indiana PMTF, Public Mass Transportation Fund. I had a reference to Public Mass Transportation Fund in there. NDOT requested that I put the word Indiana before that so that we differentiate it from federal sources. Surface Transportation Block Grant, there's the use of $432,000 in fiscal year 22 for the acquisition of a bus. And then also out there in an illustrative manner in fiscal year 26. And then the big number in the far right-hand lower column, 62.5 million over the program period, with the caveat that fiscal year 26 is an illustrative year. Okay, Ryan, if you'd scroll again, please. Okay, and then these are the smaller table here is the Indiana Department of Transportation projects we have at this point in time. We have a smaller number of NDOT projects at the current time, simply because the Department of Transportation is waiting for the reauthorization of the Surface Transportation Act by Congress. Once that act is reauthorized and once NDOT knows its assigned program levels, we will be coming to you probably throughout the remainder of this fiscal year, beginning of calendar year 22, we'll be coming to you with a whole series of amendments, adding in new projects as the funding becomes available. The NDOT has a lot of projects, what I would call behind the curtain at the current time, simply because the funding is not available. Okay, Ryan, scroll again. Okay, and then we have the individual project lists showing here. This is a breakdown from the summary tables that preceded this. These are the Monroe County projects you can see here, and then you'll see large amounts of local matching dollars for all of these federal fund expenditures. Okay, big list. Then followed the City of Bloomington projects, again showing individual projects by work phase or project phase, fiscal year, the funding source, federal funding, local match, and total amounts. Keep scrolling. City of Bloomington's projects they have more projects that are smaller in size versus Monroe County's projects, which are fewer projects, larger in size. Rural transit, this is the rural transit total right here. Essentially the same as the summary table, and then Bloomington Transit should be right here. Yeah, there's the Bloomington Transit projects right here. And this gives you a better breakdown of exactly what the funds would be used for specifically in each one of the funding categories. Okay, and I don't know what comes after this. Oh, the NDOT projects, I'm sorry. These are the NDOT projects that we have up to this point in time. Like I said, this is a small list. This list will grow substantially with the availability and reauthorization of the new Federal Surface Transportation Act. Okay. And then I'm just about done talking here. As soon as this is scrolled through, then I think we go to the appendices. Yep. And I won't belabor you with the appendices. They are what they are. These are largely wholesale usage from the 2045 Metropolitan Transportation Plan. You want to hold it right here just a second. These are wholly from the 2045 Metropolitan Transportation Plan with minor updates based on timing. Question, Andrew Seabour asked a question this morning about the financial forecast, and I gave him a long PhD answer to this, in that the financial forecasts were derived in February and March of last calendar year, and that was pre-COVID. Since COVID occurred in March, we had the economic shutdown in April of last year, making any sort of accurate financial forecast is a large guessing game. So what we did was we held with the complex methodology that we used before, which nobody at Federal Highway, Federal Transit, or NDOT has ever questioned. We've gone with all of those, the same methodology, and we've used the same numbers. We've held them more or less steady at this point in time because we're in an era of economic flux, both last calendar year and this calendar year, and the rebalance of this fiscal year. Now, if you go to the last part of this chapter here, and these are for not only local investments, but also state investments. Oops, I'm sorry, Jillian had a question here. Near the project title. I'm sorry, Jillian.
Yes, sorry, this was when you were scrolling through the project titles earlier. I just wondered the number that was indicated in the square brackets. Is that
Okay, I'm
Yeah, so
sorry.
every project title has a associated number, and I presume that's in a system somewhere. Is there a place where
Yes.
that can be tracked?
Yes, those numbers, they call them designation numbers, DES pound sign. Those are called designation numbers. This is an archaic form of project tracking INDOT has been using for decades. When I started working for INDOT in 1976, they were using DES numbers in 1976, and they haven't changed since then. In some of these, we don't have a project tracking number assigned from the Department of Transportation. So we put TBD, to be determined. We tried not to leave any of those blank. I don't think any of them are blank. So we have a designation number, and we use those in referencing projects because INDOT has 4,000 or 5,000 projects that they're tracking statewide through the state system. So yeah, this is an INDOT project tracking mechanism,
Okay.
if that helps you.
Yeah.
And the first two digits denote the year that it was programmed. In other words, if it's a 19, it was first formally programmed in 19. If it's a 09, that means it was programmed way back in 09. And almost all of the projects are current. I think we may have a few 21 projects. We have and once we have new money for new projects, then the 22 series will appear after that. And the assignment of the numbers is generated by a machine behind some curtain in Indianapolis.
Yeah, it just looked like there are a couple with TBD, but that's fine. Okay, thanks.
Okay. Ryan, keep scrolling down to the conclusions, if you could, please.
Did I hear that there was another question?
Oh, is there?
Just
okay. I mean, this is exquisite detail, and all of it is based on the best assumptions that we have available. Okay, this is where I got to riff, had the opportunity to riff in an editorial format about the macroeconomic situation in the United States and the whole situation that we're facing in terms of investments and growth and production, what I would call the national income accounts. Based on what we know right now and what the national income accounts look like, production will remain depressed as long as we have COVID out there and restrictions. Production consumption will remain depressed equally because of the uncertainty of incomes, even though that's been rising lately. And then investment, the other triad of the national income accounts, investment has been booming because businesses have a confidence that things will get better. They can't get any worse. So and what I'm citing here is I'm citing various national sources, national economic sources, Congressional Budget Office and National Bureau of Economic Analysis and a lot of others here. This is just a pure research compendium here. And I would call it the caveat to everything that preceded that. And this was, I wrote this originally in March, April, I think it was, of this calendar year. And then I updated this in August. So this is based on the most current data that we have. And it also reflects the COVID numbers that we've had in Indiana. And the COVID numbers are driving not only on the state level and the national level, but also on the local level. That's driving the economy right now. It's not a matter of what we're doing. It's a matter of how this plays out. And I'll be happy to give a seminar on this anytime anybody wants. Okay, and I think that's it. And then you could bounce to the bottom. Yeah, all of this is unchanged. We did resize a couple of tables for the Federal Transit Administration to make them more readable. Wait, you can bounce faster than that. Yeah, these are, you can go all the way down to, say, Appendix K. This is a brand new table. The Department of Transportation, unbeknownst to us, updated their performance measures and didn't tell us. So therefore, they wanted us to do that. And the best way to do that was we eliminated substantial text. I think we eliminated 4 pages of text. Instead, it's in a big complex spreadsheet table right now. This is what NDOT asked us to do. This is what we did. So therefore, we're in 100% agreement with whatever NDOT's targets are. Okay, if you could go down, all the way down, say to Appendix K. Environmental justice, nothing changed because we don't have new numbers yet. Climate change, we added a small notation on that. Complete streets did not change. Public involvement, yep. Yeah, you can scroll slowly through that. Public involvement, I went into exquisite, what I would call legal detail here, noting all of our participation, what we presented, when we presented it, and what the reactions were to all of this. And then I add this, you've seen all of this before. Scroll down to July and August, June, July, and August. Okay. Yeah, now we added in June. Okay, keep scrolling for the TAC, June for the CAC, July for the Policy Advisory Committee. Keep going. And then the public meeting, what we presented in terms of public meeting, the public input meeting, this is what we gave them. And then the comment, the end of the comment periods, we only received 1 public comment during the 30-day public comment period. That's documented. And then all the other changes that we've done here for NDOT, Federal Transit Administration, Federal Highway Administration. Keep going, keep going. My voice is giving out. Documenting the public outreach process, so that way our federal and state partners know that we did everything we were supposed to do according to the law. Yes, we coordinated with them. Oh, you can scroll past this. Thank you. Yeah. Okay, self-certification, we added that in because well, we have a signed version of this now. Okay, just hasn't made it into the document yet. Okay, keep going. Adoption resolution. This is the adoption resolution for today. Once you make a motion, hopefully, to adopt the document today, then the adoption resolution goes along with this document. Okay, keep going. Instead of making it a separate resolution, we put it straight into the document. Eases your burden. And then this is the documentation for the Department of Transportation. You can scroll down here. And this shows the summary of the individuals responding, the comments, the responses that we made to all of those. Some of those were what I would call legal citations that we made, where they were asking us if we were doing everything according to the law. And the answer was yes, of course. So yeah, that's the end of it all right there, unless anybody has any questions. I did note in a conversation with Penny Githens, and I had a conversation earlier this morning. I noted that 4 years ago, the Transportation Improvement Program was only around roughly a 40-page document. And today we're looking at 110, 111 pages. And this is a reflection of complexity issued by Federal Transit Administration, Federal Highway Administration to NDOT, and then NDOT rolled it downhill to us. So therefore, it's supersized transportation improvement program. It's something that we did not anticipate being this difficult this year. But yeah, this is the best page right here. Actually, blank page. Okay. And I'll happy to answer any questions anybody may have.
Thank you, Patrick. And do I have any questions, comments, motions?
Andrew, I think you had a question that I wasn't able, oh no, I was able to answer that earlier.
I think Sarah has a question.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I really appreciated that you were asked to further define illustrative within the document. That it's an important distinction for anyone reading the document who's not familiar with the law to understand what an illustrative year actually means. I'm not sure that we're necessarily really in touch with what it means. To us, it means, well, looks like we're going to duke it out in a couple of years when we do the next actual tip. So in the meantime, it's just sitting there and it's waiting to be fought over. Monies, and we don't have a clue what those monies are going to look like. So I'm glad that that was clarified. I'm really disappointed that because of COVID and our constrictions, that public comment was one person, as opposed to what generally happens when we're able to have genuine public meetings with humans looking at maps. We get a lot of public comment and we get a lot of participation. So I'm just expressing as a Citizens Advisory Council chair that it's deeply disappointing that while you made great efforts, and those are heavily documented here, that we really didn't have the robust kind of public participation that one might have enjoyed otherwise. So kudos to the staff for going through this incredible process and giving us what we have here. And when time comes, I will move that we approve and endorse this document. Thank you.
Yeah, the illustrative, I mean, when we had our conference call meeting with Federal Highway Administration, Federal Transit, and NDOT in August, or no, that was September 8th or 9th, I think it was this month. We went through this whole issue of the legal definition for illustrative projects with the recognition that whatever the need is, we think the need is today for fiscal year 26, 2 years from now, that need may change based on other priorities, based on availability of local funding, based on economic development needs. I mean, you could have a new industry coming in here, which would change the whole game, or you could have a whole series of industries coming in here and changing the whole game, or you could have a different governmental shift, either on the local or the county level, or even the town level for Ellisville too, for that matter. I mean, there's so many wild variables out here, and with the COVID economy right now, that's why I like to say fiscal year 26, it doesn't really count. I mean, sure, it's an unfunded need, but there's a great deal of uncertainty right now. And maybe that'll play out once COVID dies down. Hopefully COVID dies down. And so that's it. Yeah, and in terms of public involvement, I mean, my God, they told us to run 100 yards, we ran a mile, is what we did. And they were impressed by the documentation thus far. And so, yeah, I feel confident that we captured everything. And they've also been extraordinarily tough on us and all other MPOs during this period. If it was difficult for public involvement before, they've doubled or tripled the effort on us during the COVID period, which just makes it almost untenable. I mean, we're racing every day to make every document, to make every deadline, and we're grossly behind on a lot of other things that we need to do, but it's a matter of triage. This was our priority this month, and then our priority next month is on some other race.
I have one other question, and that is that INDOT asked you to add that many of the MPOs have the same target. And I'm wondering, that looked like a very interesting little adjective that they added. And I'm wondering whether there are any MPOs in this state that are actually creating their own targets that are different from the state's targets?
Louisville, the Louisville metropolitan area set its own targets. And I look at Louisville as being Kentucky.
Right.
I mean, Kentucky, Indiana, Louisville, and they have 2 counties, I believe it is, that are in Indiana. Louisville established their own. So when INDOT told us to put the word many in there, I said, you must be joking. And then they
didn't even say most, they wanted many.
Yeah.
Okay.
I quibbled, but that's what they wanted, so we put it in. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I was curious.
Yes. Well, it's indicative of what we had to do, the fiery hoops that we're jumping through for this.
And I'd like to jump in quickly too. Louisville, they've been a participant in the Public Mass Transportation Fund for many years because they provide service in Jeffersonville and New Albany.
Yes.
So that they've got that real close connection. And I also wanted to mention something too in regards to Sarah's question about the illustrative grants. We had this discussion years and years ago when Bloomington Transit was trying to get discretionary earmarks for capital funding. And we had a dilemma. The dilemma was that the planners all said you can't apply for the money unless the project is in the TIP. And then the feds said you can't put the stuff in the TIP unless it's been approved. So we decided, okay, well, we'll have to figure out a way to get around that. And we started calling it illustrative. So you could put it in the TIP even though you didn't have it. And that was at least 15 years ago.
Yeah.
And for that matter, then the same thing came up when I-69 came through.
Yeah. Another big mess.
Okay, are there any additional questions? I would like to shut up.
Yes, we have one more additional question that came through chat.
Okay.
Which reads, how was the environmental justice portion of this plan developed? Did it include surveying specific groups and people?
The environmental justice appendice was developed in what I would call it with 100% compliance with the requirements of Federal Highway, Federal Transit Administration, U.S. Department of Transportation. It relied upon the American Community Survey, it relies on successive American Community Surveys. The last American Community Survey, 2019, Census Bureau did not publish a 2020 American Community Survey because that was the year of the census. They elected not to do that. However, they have not elected to give us at this point in time, or they have not released the 2020 census data. So therefore, the information that we have in here is based on the 2019 American Community Survey, which is what is directed by the federal agencies for us to use. If we could pay for a better source, we could pay for a better source, but we don't have the funding to pay for a better source for a survey. So therefore, we rely on what the federal government gives us. I hope that answers the question. And if you've looked at some of the preliminary census tract data, which came out, I think it was in the Washington Post maybe a month ago or so, looked at some of the census tract data from Monroe County versus what we have in the American Community Survey, we found that minority populations have increased quite a bit. And that growth has predominantly been in the Asian community. And then the 2020 census also recognizes the definition of multiracial identity, which is something that had not previously been identified in any of the community surveys or in the 2010 census. So therefore, the entire landscape will change substantially once we have the data. And we will share that with you as soon as we have. I hope that answers the question.
Well, how do we ensure that there is environmental justice for these groups, I guess?
The way we do it is through this compliance, the compliance of documentation, both in the Metropolitan Transportation Plan, which was adopted last year, and then in the adoption of this document, the Transportation Improvement Program. This ensures our documentation right here, and this fulfills the requirements. When Federal Transit Administration, Federal Highway Administration approve this document and issue a formal approval letter, then that justifies the documentation for all the environmental justice section. I mean, it was notable that neither of the federal agencies or the Department of Transportation made any comments about the environmental justice section at all this year when we gave them the document. And I must note too, the Federal Highway Administration read every page. NDOT, I'm not so sure. Federal Transit, I think, just focused specifically on transit. And there is we know that it's coming down. There'll be more of a focus on minority communities and access to transportation. And there was one preliminary question that came to us on what are we doing to translate the documents to non-English speaking populations. And the answer that we responded is that the number 2 language in Monroe County, in the urbanized area, the number 2 language right now is Mandarin. And the number 3 language is Spanish. So I don't know if they will require us to somehow provide documents or make documents available to the public in Mandarin and or Spanish at this time. Does that answer your question, Penny?
I guess I just want to ensure that we're meeting the needs of other people.
Yes, we are. We have been. And Bloomington Transit, I mean, first of all, we look at the investments within these identified minority areas. We look at the investments there to make sure that we're not discriminating or having an adverse impact on any of those communities or bypassing those communities. And then the second thing is we make sure that we're maintaining transit access service to those communities in a manner which is not disproportionately different from the balance of the urbanized area. Is that sufficient?
It's not real satisfying to me, but I guess it's sufficient.
Okay. The documentation meets all federal guidelines, and in some cases it exceeds federal guidelines right now.
Any other comments or questions?
If there are none, I move to adopt 2022-2026 Transportation Improvement Program.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Do you have any other comments from the board? Do we have any comments from the public? I'm not seeing any.
Me neither.
Okay, thank you, Ryan. Would you want to call the roll?
Sure. Nickel,
Yes.
Volan,
Yes.
Ryder Band,
Yes.
Seabour,
Yes.
Bannock,
Yes.
McDaniel,
Yes.
Wiltz,
Yes.
Ridge,
Yes.
Kinsey,
Yes.
Githens,
Yes.
Clements.
I cannot in good conscience vote for this plan. So my vote is no.
Okay, that is 10-1.
Thank you. And I also want to thank Ryan and Patrick for all the hard work that they've done on this document for the last year. I can't imagine, so appreciate it.
Thank you.
Item number 8, new business draft of the Bloomington, Monroe County MPO fiscal year 2020 to 2024 Transportation Improvement Program amendments. Do you want me to read each one of those, Patrick?
No,
No,
these,
that's okay. I'll go
Ryan
over it
Ryan
here.
will do all this. I'm off the screen.
Yes,
I'm off the
I'll-
hot seat.
I'll go over it here somewhat quickly, and please let me know if you have any questions either during or at the end, and hopefully we can answer them. They're mostly NDOT projects with a few Monroe County projects, starting with the Sunrise Greeting Court extension, which goes from Vernal Pike to Profile Parkway and Gates Drive. This project will be in fiscal year 2023 and will be using $5,948,900 of federal funding with a total of $10,267,200, including the local match. And this project is kinned with the bridge project, which goes over the railroad. It has a different DES number, but they do indeed go together. And this also uses Group 3 program funding in the amount of $1,139,100 of federal funding, with a total of $3,197,480 total for the project. Next is an NDOT project. It is an added travel lane on State Route 45 from Livington bypass to Ellis. This is also known as 10th Street in this area, and it will be in the illustrative 2026, but it's NDOT, so we are more than likely to see this coming. And we're showing it in the 20 to 24 tip, just as an illustrative year. But you will also, if you had noticed, it is also in the 22 to 26 tip as well. So if you didn't see it there, I will go over it here because it will also be shown in the document that you all just passed. It is using STP money, federal funding of $2,320,000 with a state match of $580,000, totaling $2,900,000.
Ryan, I do have a question there.
Yes.
I live very near there, and I know I'm bound to get some questions on the right-of-way acquisition. Which side of the road are they going to be doing that on, the north or the south? Do you know? Because the south side is the Garden Farm site, and the north side, a lot, IU and some apartments own a lot of that.
Correct me if I'm wrong, anyone, but I believe it's the north side where they're going to be doing some utilities work, as well as other right-of-way acquisition there in 2023. If there's anyone else that knows more about this project than I do, maybe Pat.
Everything's 100% on the north side. And that's all documented in the environmental impact statement, which is done for the project itself. There will be no right of way from the Daisy Garden Farm site, except for potentially temporary right of way when they do the intersection improvement there, because they'll need to make, they'll need it for construction purposes to make those corner cuts.
Well, they're definitely going to need to do something there at that intersection of Pete Ellis and 45 because of the new hospital, and that's already a bad intersection. It's going to be expensive though. I mean, there's a lot of relatively new sidewalk and utility work, telephone poles and stuff. How much? Well, never mind. I'll find out later.
I mean, yeah, the sidewalk work is minimal. Sidewalk and side path work is minimal. You've got all your utilities buried in that mound on the north side.
Yeah, it's quite a mound. So they're going to have to move some dirt, and there is no sidewalk on the south side.
Correct.
Will be interesting.
And they will address that. I can send you yearly coordination documentation, which shows exactly what they're doing.
I would appreciate that. Thank you, Pat.
Okay, sure.
Okay, we have a few more questions. I saw Kate first.
Yeah, thanks. I was wondering, because this particular area has been one that we've had some public interest in and communications on. And recently the city approved a new, I think it's apartments, but a new development right in that same area that will impact traffic by all accounts. So is there, in the past, the state response has been typically, hey, this is in line, we can't jump line, this is when it's going to happen and how it's going to happen. But given the change with this new development, will there be any consideration for reviewing the project and moving it up, or is that still not a possibility?
I mean, I can answer the question, Kate. The project's been programmed for a number of years, and it's moving at, they can't accelerate, I'll say that. They can't accelerate because there are certain milestones that you have to meet in terms of meeting the NEPA requirements, and also for the requirements for land acquisition. So they're already on schedule. There haven't been any delays whatsoever. And their project is done independent of whatever land use is downstream. I mean, I know the development you're talking about is down there by Needmore Roasters, and I can't remember the name of the intersecting street there, and Pete Ellis, and that is a substantial development, but that will take a couple of years to come online. I mean, that has been approved, I believe, but they still have to go through an approval process with planning and transportation. But by the time that comes online, this project should be completed by that time also. And I don't know if that was taken into account by the consultants, by the state's consultants, in terms of the traffic impact or not. I mean, this is a moving target all the time in terms of what's happening there. And I realized that the housing that's being developed there on Pete Ellis across from Needmore Roasters is being marketed to what I would call the hospital environment, the employees of the hospital environment. That's not to say that those may be people that actually live in those apartments or rent those apartments. It may end up being students or graduate student type apartments instead. I mean, I'm giving you an answer of we don't know, but the project is moving along at a rapid pace.
Huh. Yeah, okay.
Thank you. I think next we have a question from Steve.
I'd actually prefer to defer to Andrew because he might have something to say to Kate's question, and then I'll ask my questions.
Sure. I think there's a lot of confusion in this area, and I think it's good to clarify some of the things. And I don't know if anybody from INDOT is here today, but my understanding is that even in our tip, there's a series of projects on East 10th Street. This one is a travel lane addition as described between the bypass and Pete Ellis. INDOT in the tip has another project to improve the Pete Ellis and East 10th Street intersection, and that is programmed for next year for 2023. It was my understanding, and maybe still is, that they're trying to kin these two projects together to get it all done at the same time, but they're listing this with a different construction year, so I don't quite know what's going on there, but the intersection improvement project is planned for 2023.
Yeah,
I just wanted to clarify that.
This project was called a bench project. In other words, it was out there, but they didn't have money for it. Bench project could be called illustrative even for that matter. This was a bench project, and then money became available through state balances, and therefore they moved this project up. In the meantime, they've continued to work on the environmental documentation of the whole thing. And they hope to have achieved the beginning of the right-of-way approval phase by the end of this calendar year. And then beyond that, beyond Pete Ellis to Russell Road, that project is, well, they can begin that next year, but you're not looking at construction on that until probably 2025, 2026.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Did that answer your question, Steve?
No, I wanted to ask and say a thing, but the thing I wanted to ask was on what basis is INDOT, maybe I should rephrase it, are traffic counts really so dramatic on 10th Street that it merits all this upgrade? Is there any professional opinion on the call on this topic?
I mean, I can tell you what the traffic data is showing. The traffic data is showing that it's more or less the same or modest growth. The problem comes in with the conflicts that you have there with narrow right-of-way, because the roadway was designed for a different era versus modern standards. And then the other conflict comes in at the intersection itself, where you've got a lot of turning movements and through movements. And then you've got the complexity there of the post office, and then the apartment complex and the historical unit. And then the hospital is just a cherry on top, so to speak.
Okay, second question is, isn't Range Road being extended to 14th Street to provide a second method of access to the hospital?
I can't speak to that.
I mean, at that intersection at Pete Ellis, it's going to extend north, right?
Andrew can speak to that. Andrew can speak to that. I can't.
I guess maybe to try to answer some of these questions, I wish INDOT was here to really differentiate what this project is that we're looking at right now, the added travel lanes. I don't know exactly what this is versus the intersection improvement project at Pete Ellis. I think there is documentation to suggest some improvements to Pete Ellis are necessary with the new hospital site and clarifying some of the turn lanes. And it's really, I think, from my perspective, a good safety improvement project. Then they're doing some pedestrian upgrades there as well. They're also planning on, multi-use path and some upgrades along the corridor. So I don't know what is each of these projects. I think that's a good question. And I know IU Health had done a traffic impact study planning for this for the new hospital site. So I think that's what's driving some of INDOT's projects, but I couldn't speak in more detail to them.
So yeah, I would like to know, I mean, I don't quite understand the impact of the vote today. You know, until I know exactly how pedestrian improvements are integral to the pair of projects, not just the intersection improvement, but the 10th Street improvement. I don't even like using the word improvement. I don't know that it's, I mean, I definitely don't think, I know for a fact that INDOT couldn't have taken into account the new housing project that we just approved because it was in doubt for us too for quite some time. And I don't think that a project like that is anywhere near as dramatic a traffic impact. If anything, it will balance out traffic instead of it all being commuter or shopping traffic. There will also be residential traffic at different hours of the day. But you know, I have real trouble basing a major decision like this on a perception that traffic may get worse. So until I know, understand better to what extent pedestrian improvements, pedestrian and bike improvements, side path and the like are a part of this, I have a hard time supporting this so-called improvement to 10th Street.
And Steve, Kate, and Kent, what I can do is I can send you, well, I can send the whole committee a copy of the early coordination letter, which we received from INDOT's consultant. The early coordination letter documents specifically everything that will take place with this project associated with this.
Does it also document the consultant's reasons for recommending this so-called improvement?
The recommendation for the improvement came from INDOT's engineers.
Oh, well.
Yeah, I mean, the route, and I don't refer to it as an improvement. I call it a modernization. Is what I would.
That would be a more preferable term.
Yeah, because it's, I mean, the roadway, the Statewide 45 corridor is, I mean, it's based on the design standards of the 1960s, 1960s, early 1970s, probably 1950s, and they didn't construct it until the 60s or 70s. It's based on standards which are at least 50 years out of date. So therefore, the modernization is taking place in terms of the added travel lane section from the bypass to Pete Ellis.
But even then, I mean, the capacity increase on 10th Street is a direct impact of the widening of the bypass 10 years ago, which itself was, in my opinion, excessive. So,
agreed. That was a downstream of impact.
Yeah, and so it's a sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah, to a certain extent. And then the other thing to recognize too, and this is shown in the commuting data, the travel time data, traffic pattern data, is that a lot of the traffic on, it's southbound on the Statewide 45, 46 bypass may have a destination which is east of 3rd and College, 3rd and College Mall Road. And so therefore, instead of waiting excessively at the intersection of 3rd and College Mall Road and the bypass, what they're doing is they're taking a shortcut, turning left, going down Statewide 45 to Pete Ellis, and then turning there to go back to Statewide 46, or they're going down to Smith Road and then turning south on Smith Road to get onto Statewide 46. In other words, they're using Statewide 45 as a bypass around the congested intersection of the bypass.
Right. So anyway, those are my concerns. Yeah, and yeah, I think you've correctly identified some of my concerns.
Okay. Yeah, what I'll do is I'll just send everybody a copy of the environmental documentation which we received, and we had a conference call, video conference call on this several months ago, and the consultant even issued additional documentation on the Daisy Garden Farms just recently too.
Can I just ask, are we going to, I mean, our meeting is supposed to end at 3. Will this continue to the next meeting if we don't resolve it today?
That's up to the committee. If you wish to table this one, this or any of them, or even all of them, until further information is available. That's your.
Well, we only have 7 minutes though. That's all I'm saying is that, you know, I didn't know if this meeting was going to continue after 3.
I would hope not.
As a city council member who is trying to get time limits on all meetings at council, I appreciate the fact that you scheduled a stop time. So.
Yes, to answer that question, we can vote on any of these by themselves or collectively. So you can single this one out if you would like to.
I would like to, but I think you have other questions. Thank you.
Okay, yes. The next question is Margaret.
Hello. Just would like to state once again how much I would appreciate transparency on the discussion of the 14th Street corridor. We've been hearing about this mythic project in very veiled terms for many years now. And we've asked for presentations about this kind of plan. And even today, when asked about the 14th Street corridor, the answers, in my opinion, were not as direct as is due us. And so I'd like to just raise that as a major request, and hopefully the MPO staff will fulfill the request of one of the MPO members. So thank you.
And I mean, the MPO staff knows nothing about the 14th Street extension. We're not a part of that discussion at all because it's not a federal aid project. I mean, any ongoing discussions have been between the hospital, City of Bloomington, and Indiana University and IU Health.
I'd like more transparency. I think we're due it. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. The next question is from Sarah.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, do we know how the ambulances are expected to access the hospital? Is it going to be on the Pete Ellis extension, or will it be the 14th Street, Range Road access to the hospital? And will there be any controls over how ambulances access the emergency room or the rest of the hospital for that matter?
We'll have to refer back to that presentation, which was made to the policy committee several years ago. And then we'll also have to refer it to IU Health because we don't know the answer to that, but we can do that for you.
The presentation, as I recall, indicated that the ambulances were primarily to use the Range Road entrance.
I believe it was the opposite, but
okay.
Yeah, the primary entrance was to be off of the bypass, and I think they were supposed to have minimal use of the Range Road access because that was going to be the commercial access for the commercial vehicles servicing the hospital itself. Well, but I'll have to ask. I mean, I really don't.
And I know that living near the current hospital, that while they're supposed to access via First Street, that doesn't always happen. They also access on Second Street, and there's no control over what's going to happen since this is at least a 9-county access point for emergency care. So we don't know where they're going to come in. And indeed, Pete Ellis may be part of their access. I really would be interested in hearing back from a hospital if they have any further notions of what's going to happen.
And it's not going to be just the ambulances. It's going to be their employees at shift change times and stuff too. And especially if those shift change times coincide with when University Elementary School has drop off and pickup.
Mm-hmm. We will direct these questions to IU Health.
All right, are there any other questions about this? And we can talk about maybe singling this one out if you would like later, but I should be able to go through the rest of these somewhat quickly, unless there's further questions, of course. Okay, the next project is a Monroe County project. It is the Loesch Road at Indiana Railroad. I believe that this is the intersection of the Karst Farm Greenway Phase 2B project, which is also, let's see, in 24, I believe, is that right? So this is a construction project in fiscal year 22 using Section 130 railroad safety funds. 270,000 for federal with a total of 300,000. Okay, next is another NDOT project. It is a statewide highway railroad grade crossing safety action plan. This is a highway safety project, and it is using $6,430 of federal funding in 22. Next is a bridge deck overlay on State Route 46 over Stevens Creek. The construction for this is in 2026 and is $501,600 with a state match of $125,400 for construction. The next is 23 bridge thin deck overlays all throughout the Seymour district on Interstate 69. It has one main DES number, and I'm not going to read any of the other DES numbers because that would be forever. But the construction for this is in 2026 using National Highway Program funding, and the total for that is going to be $6,863,400 in federal funding. Next is a bridge deck overlay on State Route 46 at Hart Strait Road over Jack's Defeat Creek. Also in 26, also using National Highway funds for $1,002,400 in federal funding. The next project is small structure pipelining on State Route 37 over an unnamed tunnel for Clear Creek. And the only way to find this is by going 1.45 miles south of around I-69. Right-of-way acquisition for this project will take place in 24 with construction in the outlying year of 2026 using federal funding of $434,800 with a state match for construction on $108,700. Next project, also an NDOT project, is a small structure replacement on State Route 48 over an unnamed ditch. It is scheduled for right-of-way in 24 as well, and construction in 26 as well, using Surface Transportation Block Grant funding in the amount of $241,200 for construction, and with a state match of $60,300. And the last project is the Kinser Pike Bridge over I-69, northbound and southbound, 2.5 miles north of State Route 46. The construction for this will be in fiscal year 23 using National Highway Program funds in the amount of $99,000 with a state match of $11,000. And so with that, we'll take any other questions on any of these remaining TIP projects.
I guess my question would be if someone was to make a motion for this, it sounds like it's a consensus that we could take a motion for all of the projects, but eliminating or tabling the DES number 1800086 until
Correct.
further
You can make
information.
one single motion for this if that were to so be moved.
Thank you.
So I move approval of the tip amendments, eliminating or postponing DES number 18000086 until a further meeting.
I've got a question. I just want to make sure when we're talking about this DES number, we're talking about the Pete Ellis State 45 road project. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Just wanted to make sure.
So we had a motion from Sarah and a second from Kate. Do we have any more comments or questions from the board? Do we have any comments or questions from the public?
I don't see any.
Kate?
I'm slow. Yeah, I do have a question. Are these other projects for the 10th Street area are not on here. Where are they? Are they already in and these are just amendments? So that's why they're not here?
They're illustrative. They're out in the future.
Wait, okay.
Yeah. INDOT uses the term bench projects.
Yeah.
And really it means they're sitting on the bench because there's no money. We use the term illustrative. So yeah, this is the only project out there. I mean, the intersection project came first. This is the added travel lane portion, which connects to the intersection. And then the bigger improvements to Statewide 45 from Pete Ellis east to Russell Road won't come for another couple of years yet.
Okay, thank you.
Any more comments? I'm not seeing anything from the public either. Are you, Ryan?
Not at this point.
Okay. Would you want to call a roll?
Sure. Volan.
He had to leave.
Oh, okay. Rider Band.
Yes.
Seabor.
Yes.
Bannock.
Yes.
McDaniel.
Yes.
Wiltz.
Yes.
Ridge.
Yes.
Githens.
Yes.
Clements.
You please rephrase what we are voting on?
Sure. To paraphrase, it is all of these, or it's the 10 tip amendments excluding DES number 18000086, which is the added travel lane on State Route 45 between the bypass and Pete Ellis.
Okay, so we're tabling everything except for that?
No, we are voting on the approval, if I'm right, Sarah, the approval of the 10 amendments with the tabling of that one project.
My vote is no.
Nickel.
Yes.
Okay, that is 8-1.
Ryan, you didn't call me, Jillian Kinsey.
Oh, I'm sorry,
but
Jillian.
it's okay. Yes, just to get your count right. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Make that 9. I thought that there was a comment that someone left.
Okay.
Gee, we lost.
Yeah, it was Steve Boland had to leave.
Oh, I apologize. So to say that again, that is 9-1.
All right, thank you. Moving to item 9, communications from committee members, non-agenda items, topic suggestions for future agenda.
I do have something. I promise to be very brief. It's already been a long meeting. I just wanted to let you know what's going on with Bloomington Transit. Pat mentioned earlier that Lou May is going to be gone soon. He's going to stay in Bloomington, but at the end of this month, he will retire. And he's on vacation right now, taking some well-deserved time off. In the meantime, we went out for bids and we got 2 management companies, both excellent proposals. We selected RATP Dev, which is a French-owned company. It used to be McDonald Transit, which is where Lou came from, and before that, Dave G&A. And so we were very happy with them. So they officially haven't started yet because of technicalities, we haven't been able to approve the contract, although I think that'll happen. I think it's September 21st. But they have already hired John Connell, that's Connell, and he's going to represent their company. He will replace Lou, and he's already here in town. The company's picking up his salary for this month, so he's already been involved. And we started labor negotiations Wednesday, so he's jumping right in into the fire. It's going to be an interesting time, but Lou's around. He's going to stay in town, so he'll be able to work with John. I've known John for many years. He was the general manager in Evansville, Indiana for 13 years and did a fine job there. Then he went to Lafayette and worked there as the operations manager for 18 years. And they're a very admirable service. They've done a really good job. When I talk about the best systems in Indiana, I say, well, Bloomington, but maybe Lafayette. But they're very good, and he knows what he's doing. So he's going to be around for several more years, and we're very happy to have him. So in case anybody wants to know more about what's going on at BT, you can contact me. I don't know how negotiations are going right now. We've been at it for 2 days. I haven't gotten an update yet. Last time it only took 3 days to get a contract. I don't think it's going to be that easy this time, but we should have something by the end of the month, and then it officially starts January 1st. Okay, that's all for me. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Ken. And we welcome John and wish nothing but Lou the best. I know he's done great. And I don't know him as well as you do, but my interactions with him have always been great and professional, and I wish him well on his retirement. And
He's terrific.
And I'm jealous.
One of the most honest and reliable people I've ever met.
That's awesome. Sarah?
Yeah, since the staff didn't mention it in their report, I wanted to mention that they are undergoing their semi-whatever annual, every quadrennial, who knows, audit of their MPO. And it's an extensive process, and they are undergoing it now. So the fact that they're able to pull all of this together for us is really remarkable. And I just kudos to our staff.
Thank you.
And many thanks.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Sarah.
Appreciate that. Yeah.
Patrick, hopefully when you slow down, you can finally take one of those vacations.
The end of this month.
All right, great.
Yeah, I'll be across the pond for a few days at the end of this month and the first part of October. And then I'll also be gone in November to Greece. And Ryan will have the airplane for 2 consecutive meetings. So, yeah.
And I'm sure Ryan will do great. And you have a wonderful vacation, Patrick. Well deserved.
Thank you.
Upcoming meetings, technical advice. Oh, Penny?
One more. We have Penny with a question.
Yeah, thank you. Could we at our next meeting have an update on that 14th Street corridor, please? Because it does impact some of the things that we vote on and discuss.
Yes, and the MPO staff knows nothing about the 14th Street corridor simply because that's not a federal aid project. So we don't know anything about that, and what we'll have to do is contact experts that are involved in that process and then develop a memo for you. So yeah, I mean, I have 2 things here, well, 3 things. on the to-do list for the next meeting. The first one is the 14th Street extension status, what's going on with that, because we don't know. And then the next question is the primary entrance for the hospital. We'll query Indiana University Health on that. And the third thing is that I will send everybody a copy of the early coordination correspondence from the consultant on the Statewide 45 added travel lanes project, from the Statewide 45-46 bypass to Pete Ellis. So those are the three to-dos that we'll have for you at the next meeting. Two of those in the form of a report of staff reports, and the third one in terms of old business, since it involves a TIP amendment.
Great.
Is that, did I miss anything? I want to make sure I didn't miss anything.
I don't know if it's the desire of anybody else on this board, but I would like to have somebody here from the city of Bloomington, if they're the ones overseeing the 14th Street corridor, or the state, whomever is responsible for that. I'd like to have them present at the meeting, so in case we have questions.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other topics up for? I want to make sure I miss anyone. Seeing none, our next meeting says Technical Advisory Committee meeting is September 22nd at 10 a.m. virtual. Citizens Advisory Committee meeting September 22nd, 6:30 virtual. And Policy Committee next meeting is October 8th at 1:30, and it will be a hybrid. And I think this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.